On Thursday, the 28th of August, 2025, we're talking to Mai Fatty on Coffee Time with Peter Gomez live on West Coast Radio, 92.1 on FM, online www.wcr.gm. You penned a very interesting article and very long article, which I'm thankful that you are here this morning to help us unpack. Democracy is not one-sided. You say in the article. Yes. Just sum it up for me before maybe now I pick out specific paragraphs there for further conversation.
Yes, Peter, this country, a lot of people misunderstand what democracy is all about. I realized this in 2016 and 2017 when I was appointed Minister of Interior. There are several law and order issues that ensued immediately after the new dispensation assumed office. Because we came from a background of serious political repression. And when that cloud was lifted, a lot of people felt, well, now we are free to do anything we want. It's democracy. I can say what I want. I can do what I want. And, it's my constitutional right. People do not understand exactly, in fact, what constitution contains. So, that is what the one-sidedness comes in here. And this one-sidedness I have written has specific relevance to subjective interpretations of the law and application of democratic practices in our country. People believe that since the Constitution allows you the right to protest, so democratically you can go out and protest anyhow at any place you want, and the government has no right to stop you. That is a one-sided interpretation of democracy. The second part is I am supporting a political party and my political party philosophy. So I have a right to propagate the views of my political party and my perception. Mm-hmm. But the moment someone else criticizes your views about your political parties, then they become undemocratic. All of a sudden, the tables change. They get aggressive, they get angry, they start insulting. Sometimes they'll physically attack and assault because you do not have a right to criticize them. But they have a right to criticize. They have a right to advocate. That's a one-sided democracy. We are talking about the right to protest. Section 5 of the Public Order Act is very clear. It is a legitimate law. The matter was challenged at the highest court in the Gambia, Supreme Court. Supreme Court sustained its legality. Not only that, but let's go to ECOWAS. ECOWAS Court of Justice also sustained the Section 5 of the Public Order Act. It was challenged at the ECOWAS Court. But the regional court said it is okay. So if you say the Gambia government and you do not believe the Gambian Supreme Court and Supreme Court judges, meanwhile there's no reason not to. But what about if you go to ECOWAS, the region, who are not Gambians, a different international tribunal that also adjudicated and determined on the legality or constitutional of that same section that our Supreme Court also maintained. And they say, oh no, the Gambia government is right. Section 5 is quite okay, should be in their law books. I think that should be understood, that should be accepted. Of course, your opinion could be your opinion, but legally speaking, that is the state of affairs. And the Gambia government has no other obligation under the Constitution other than to enforce. That's Section 5, which has been upheld by both the Gambian Supreme Court and the ECOWAS Court of Justice. So we must understand that it is not about the content of the language, content of the subject matter of the protest. It's not about that. It is the fact that when you want to go out and protest, you have a constitutional right to do so, but you must follow the rules. If you do not follow the rules, you have violated the law, because the Constitution did not grant the right to protest unconditionally. It said you have a right to protest subject to certain conditions. And I want to go and read the Constitution, what the Constitution says.
Sure.
The Constitution is very clear about the right to protest. Section 25 of the Constitution is the governing section, the controlling legal authority that talks about freedom of speech, conscience, assembly, association, and movement. And Section 25(1) A, B, A up to F is very clear about everyone has the right. Every person shall have the right. But if you look at section 4, that is 25 subsection 4, the Constitution limits your right to freedom of assembly. It limits your right to freedom of the right to protest. It limits your right to movement and association. Subsection 4 states the freedom referred to in subsections 1 and 2 shall be exercised subject to the law of the Gambia, insofar as the law imposes reasonable restrictions, on the exercise of the rights and freedoms thereby conferred, which are necessary in a democratic society and are required in the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of the Gambia, national security, public order, decency or morality, or in relation to contempt of court. So Section 25 of the Constitution, which guarantees the right to protest or the right to assembly, restricts at subsection 4 of that section that you cannot do so as you wish. It must be subject to law, subject to Public Order Act Section 5. So if you want to exercise your right to assembly, which the Constitution gives you under Section 25 and 2, that same Constitution says you can only do so subject to any other law. In this case, subject to the Public Order Act, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court of the Gambia and the ECOWAS Court of Justice. So if you do not follow the procedure prescribed by the Constitution in the exercise of that fundamental right, you have no one to blame but yourself, because the Constitution equally gives the state the right to restrict the exercise of assembly or protest. It says so as are necessary in a democratic society. What is necessary in a democratic society? We must maintain law and order. We are not in a jungle. We are not running a banana republic. So we must conduct governance according to law, and not against the law. Exercise your rights according to law. But if you want to go on civil disobedience, then you take the consequences.
You put it in a different way in your article. We always talk about rights, but ignore that without laws, there would be no rights or freedoms. It is now time we all focus on the imperative to respect our laws so as to preserve our rights and freedoms. A football enthusiast will tell you about all the laws in football. Other enthusiasts will also tell you about all the guidelines in their, area of interest. But Gambians, not many of us have taken time to even look at, what, this book called our Constitution looks like, let alone know about its content. Should we be reading that document that you have in front of you more often than maybe, we spend arguing about things in it without having taken a look at it?
I agree with you. That is the case. You see, in this country, people go by hearsay. Mai Fatty sits at the political platform, and he's my kind of politician. And he says President Barrow has no right, or the police have no right to arrest a protester. And, so Mai Fatty's word is taken as a fact. And my supporters go and run with it. It's natural in politics. I understand that. But you see, you cannot be a liberated citizen if you are not conscious of the laws of your country. Your mind cannot be, you cannot call yourself politically conscious if you do not understand the basic tenets of democracy or the fundamental principles guiding constitutional exercise. You cannot call yourself a real patriot, a true citizen of a country like the Gambia, when you do not even understand what the Constitution says, and you keep saying is in the Constitution, people say so many things is in the Constitution, and I get worried. I get worried because the amount of ignorance, the amount of political ignorance in this country is astounding. It is mind-boggling, and many times intellectuals, those who expect should know, are the very people misleading the rest of the herd. So we have this herd mentality where people, instead of reading to know what is in the Constitution, or asking those who know, go on the basis of their individual perception and take their personal opinion as authority, as the law. So So we must make the practice of reading in order to understand what to appreciate and what not to appreciate. So I agree with you that the Constitution is one thing that every citizen must know. And of course, ignorance of the law is no crime. I do not know that that is the law will not save you. You would be in a police cell or a prison cell regretting why you did not know. Because being a citizen, particularly citizen sua juris, who is compos mentis, with your 18 and above, you are expected to know the laws. It is an obligation on you to acquaint yourself with the laws of your land. And if you do not do so, well, you can become a victim of your own ignorance. So I think this ought to be taught more in schools. We need to finance heavily the civil, what is it called again? Gambia...
National Civic,
National
Council for
National
Civic
Education, yes, need to be heavily financed so that they can do a lot of this. And the NGOs and civil society, instead of talking about, like we said, talking about rights, ought to educate people what the laws regarding those rights are. That is what I meant by we often talk about rights, but not, talking about the laws that really prescribe those rights. You can exercise your right if you do not know the laws governing the exercise of those rights. You can exercise it in a manner that is malevolent to your own interest. And that is what, is happening. So when people mis-exercise their constitutional rights and law enforcement agents come in sway in order to protect the public interest, those who do not know come out to say, well, it's a simple exercise of rights. You should not limit it. And I'm appalled to hear lawyers and appalled to hear people who consider themselves professors peddling this kind of ignorant arguments out there. You see, it is wrong. Let us be honest and tell the people the truth.
And speaking of rights, privileges, things that are binding, things that may not be binding, you often hear that an agreement is an agreement. Once an agreement has been made, it is binding. Now, this is leading me to the third term debate. When the coalition 2016 was coming, the understanding was that Barrow was to serve initially just 3 years, then, organize elections in which he couldn't, compete as a candidate and move on. But since then, Barrow is here. The third term debate has surfaced. Some are saying that he shouldn't stand. That would be against all expectations, and there are people, including Mai Fatty, I believe, who think yes, he has every right to stand next year, and should just go ahead with plans to do so. As a lawyer, really, who was there, for instance, in 2016 when this 3-year agreement was being made. I mean, where do we stand on this?
Thank you very much. President Barrow is not alone in that company who believes that the 3 years should go on. There is a man in this country, a personality whom I have great respect for. He's a mentor, and just like you were for us when we were in school. And he has a great standing in this country, and he's a great lawyer, one of the best lawyers in the Gambia. I do not only rate him as one of the best lawyers in the Gambia, I consider him one of the best lawyers in West Africa. He has mentored me in the bar, and he is also a real political heavyweight. He is the very first person to say this, and this is no other than my own father, my in-law, and our elder statesman, His Excellency the former Vice President. He has indicated that the 3 years is unconstitutional, and I sat down in the forum at Senegambia at Kairaba.
Can you name this mentor?
I'm coming. Okay. At Kairaba Hotel. I believe it's the very first meeting of the coalition executive when they were released from prison. The very first meeting where this statement was made. I sat down. I was there when it was in my presence. When my mentor, His Excellency the former Vice President, His Excellency Usainu Dabo, made that statement, and he made that commitment. I believe that Honorable Usainu Dabo is a much greater lawyer than I am, and I believe he's a much more experienced lawyer than I am, and I understand that he is also a constitutional law expert. I give him all that, And I look up to him as a senior in the bar, and I still do. That was his position on the 3-year agreement. And I agree with him. It's unconstitutional. So it's a question of morality, whether President Barrow will comply or not comply. If he does not, that's a judgment on him. But if he decides to pursue his legitimate legal term, that cannot be quarreled. Likewise, there is no provision in the current constitution that bars him from contesting again. He can contest, like Jawara did several times. He can contest like Angela Merkel of Germany, one of the most developed economies, contested so many times, like Prime Minister Modi of India, like several heads of state and prime ministers in Europe, like in countries at least of about 4 billion, countries of 4 billion population, where they contest repeatedly as long as they have the mandate of the people. So all over the world, in different countries, 4 billion population, in nations around the world, have the ability to present themselves for candidature. So I would say, when President Barrow wants to do so, tell me what law, under what law, are you justifying that he should not contest for third term? What is the legal basis for this argument? Give me one provision in any law in the Gambia that says President Barrow cannot. And I will give you a provision in the law of the Gambia, in the constitution, that says he can. So let us respect the constitution of the Gambia. If you say he should not contest for the third term, then you do not have any basis. It's a legal opinion. It's just a political opinion. And your opinion is not supported by law. And we are a country of laws. So if we go by our own laws, President Barrow has a right to contest. And if he contests, and the circumstances are okay, and my party continues to exercise confidence in him, we will support him at the right time. But that is a matter for GMC to make. Today we are in the coalition and we are supporting him. When the right time comes for us to continue the support, we will.
Fantastic. So, okay, that's your position. And of course, it's all premised on the 1997.
No,
yes?
That is not my position. That is the position of the Gambian constitution. The Gambian constitution says so. It is not me. Nobody should take this as Mai Fatty Mune, Mai Fatty Ko. I'm saying the law, the ground norm, the supreme law of the land says he can. It's not my...
Sure.
Don't quote me.
Sure.
Quote the constitution.
Sure. No, I'm saying... Yes. That's what I was going.
Not you. I mean, anybody listening to me should not say, "Oh, Mai Fatty, why is he saying president?" I'm saying, objectively speaking, President Barrow has a right to contest because the Constitution gives him that right.
Absolutely.
Just like people who say they have a right to protest. So, that is it.
And I was saying it's all premised on the 1997 Constitution.
Absolutely.
All right. But I mean, you know what happened to the 2020 draft Constitution and the 2024. Draft constitution, and of course comparisons have been made. Again, you might have made this very clear before on different platforms. What was your position on the 2020 draft constitution, especially as it related to the constitution being retroactive, which would have made Barrow's first 5 years from 2016 to 2021 a recognized term, leaving him with only 2021 to 2026, to be president, and which would have meant that he wouldn't have been qualified to run next year, as he is allowed to do under the 1997 Constitution.
I agree with you, Peter, but before you come to the 2020 Constitution, when the 2020 Constitution was drafted, already we had an existing law. And even in that same 2020 Constitution, it is very clear that there should be no discrimination against anybody. The 2020 draft incorporated again the 1997 constitutional provision of non-discrimination against anybody. No one should be discriminated against. And no law should be made that subjectively appears have the tendency to discriminate against anybody. That same draft we are talking about says so. But it is also in the 1997 Constitution that you must not discriminate against anybody. So when you say retrospective or retroactive, you are saying it must operate backwards. I mean, it's a well-known principle of law that retroactivity is not permitted. It's not permitted. President Barrow will be the only victim of this law, it would constitute discrimination, because there's nobody else, who is president, to whom a retroactive provision would apply to. It would apply to only him. So it appears, in my objective view, that that particular provision was tailor-made for him, to prevent him from contesting again. I think that is iniquitous. It is not right. A law should not be made just for one person or to target one person. It is immoral. It is unconstitutional under the existing 1997 Constitution, and I think it is politically unjustifiable. So what we should have done was to go ahead, and the operative commencement date of a new constitution, whatever is in the provisions would apply subsequently. But I believe, even then and now, that a retroactive provision is wrong and is not permitted by law. Hardly. Of course, there are certain specific legislations, certain revenue laws, and certain penal sanctions, criminal laws that may have retroactive effect. But it is very clear in the constitutional law that retroactivity is not operational. So who was it made for? Nobody would dispute that it was made only for President Barrow. Why should a constitutional provision target one individual? I mean, let us be honest. Nañu waxante dëgg. Man waruñoo defar benn loi boo xam ne benn nit rek mooy nekk victim bi. Then what is the sense of a constitution when within that same constitutional provision it institutionalizes discrimination? When a provision within that same draft says you cannot discriminate against anybody, it's an inconsistency. Even if it passed, President Barrow can challenge it. And I believe that, it would be a successful challenge. So I do not support it because I think it's unjust. And we should all support we should all be against unjust laws. It's an unjust provision. Anybody who has a sense of objectivity, anybody who is fair, anybody who is after justice and equality for all, and equal opportunity on the political avenues for all, should not support the enactment of any provision that will target an individual. It is wrong. It should not happen in a democratic society, especially a republic like the Gambia.
Mm-hmm. And then came the 2024 draft, or some call it the government draft, of course, rectifying that, totally excluding the retroactive clause. But then again, many people, didn't like it. And obviously in the National Assembly, it failed to get, the support that would have seen it through. What's your position on the 2024 draft?
I think it should be allowed to pass.
It should have been.
Yes, it should have
been allowed to pass.
Yes, it should have been allowed to pass. It should have gone to committee stage, and at the committee stage, all the technicalities can be worked out. It is up for the Gambians. Even if it passes through Parliament, it will not still be a constitution. It has to go to a referendum. So Parliament should exercise their limitations. They should enable that constitution to go to the public and let the Gambians decide at the plebiscite, at an election, at a referendum, whether they want it or not. So Parliament are people's representatives, but the law is very clear. It says in matters of referendum, Parliament has no hand. It's only citizens, the voters of the Gambia, who reserve that constitutional authority to determine whether the constitution should exist or should not. So when we go to campaign at the referendum level, those who are against it can go and explain to the voters why they should not vote for it. And those who are in support of it should explain to voters why they should support for it. But, Peter, it's a travesty that the Gambian population, the Gambian voters, were denied the right to even make a determination on those provisions because Parliament decided to withhold it. Parliament decided to withhold it. I think they should let it go on, and parliamentarians should put on their political dress and caps and disperse across the country and tell Gambians their various perspectives and allow the voters to exercise their sovereignty on the matter. But that sovereignty was stolen from them. So the 20, it should have passed, should have been, voted on. This is my view.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people blame the National Assembly for being too married to party politics, party ideology. Do you see the National Assembly, in a similar perspective?
Yes, in that, because the positions never change. The trenches that they dug in 2020 were further widened, at the last session when this matter came up. People remain recalcitrant in their trenches and were firing missiles and bazookas at each other on the same principles, the same static principles. So partisanship was the defining feature, during those discussions. And the conclusion, the determination is equally partisan. That is what we have seen. So clearly, excessive partisanship works against the public. That is, that is one of the disadvantages of parliamentary democracy. When you have parliament and you have political influences and political considerations that supersede national interests. And we see it play out often, regularly in the National Assembly. Depending on the party color, votes are done.
We've just spoken about the Constitution. Let me pick your brain on other issues that are out there in public discourse. The ID card issuance scheme, targeting Gambians abroad. Oh, goodness me, the government has come in for some heavy criticism. I mean, what do you think about allegations that it's all geared towards, tampering with elections next year?
It's a false perception. It's a much ado about nothing. It's hula baloo. What are they saying? It's just bubbles. They're just creating an idea, fomenting an idea in the minds of the people in order to psychologically prepare them for an electoral defeat, so that when they are defeated, they can have the excuse to say that people were registered outside the country and they came in and voted en masse. This is why they
people were registered outside the country who were not Gambian.
Well, who are not, you cannot prove.
Well, because that's what I mean, if a Gambian is registered outside the country and comes back to vote, that's legal.
Yes, but the assumption, the atmosphere they are trying to build is that it is not only Gambians, but in fact non-Gambians, and are going to be, because they are talking about the procedure.
Yeah, it is that qualification I was seeking to get.
They are saying that the verification mechanism for citizenship is very tenuous in these circumstances. So they are building up in the minds of the public a possibility of an electoral defeat. And one of the justifications that are going to be used, we warn you, we told you that this was happening. And you see, the difference in terms of the victory has been secured through fraudulent ID card issuance outside the country. But let me just make one clarification here, very clearly. When I was Minister of Interior, we were not even thinking about elections then. And this time we were all a coalition government. When His Excellency, former Vice President Honorable Usainu Dabo was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have always believed that access to vital Gambian documents should be extended to all Gambians, both in the country and in the diaspora. It was part of my policy that I was driving at the ministry at the time. And there was a time when I and my technicians held a meeting at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I had already discussed this policy proposal with the President at the time, and he supported the idea. But it was necessary to involve the Minister of Foreign Affairs because they are the custodians of our diplomatic missions. So I had a meeting with the then Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Usainu Dabo, at his office, myself together with the Director General of Immigration and my permanent secretary at the time. We held a meeting at his office on Marina Parade, where I explained to him the intention of the ministry to start issuing identification cards to Gambians outside the country, and the intention of my ministry to position immigration officers within Gambian diplomatic stations so that they will be competent enough to issue ID cards to them. Because under Gambian law, a consular officer or another diplomat has no right to issue Gambian identity documents. It is the immigration department that can legally issue vital documents of that nature. So it would be necessary under law to have immigration officers stationed within Gambian diplomatic stations so they can continue to renew when your document expires, and they can issue documents to those who may have lost their own or who may not even have it, like those who may have gone through the back way, and did not have any Gambian identity documents, subject to laws, subject to verification mechanism. And this is why, at the time, we also suspended the issuance of ID cards. And we looked into the manner in which machine-readable passports, the MRP passports, can be further sanitized. And His Excellency, Honorable Isonu Dabo, will attest to this fact that such a meeting took place. So it is a long-standing policy of the Gambia government to issue ID cards to Gambians outside the country since 2017, since I was Minister of Interior. It is a continuation of that same policy, which culminated in implementation now. It needed funds. It needed pilot programming. You cannot do it all over the diaspora, but you can pilot it. You can start in 1 or 2, 3 countries. You see the efficacy of the policy. You make corrections, modifications. You make adjustments in implementation. Then you apply into different countries. Over a period of time, between 5 years to 10 years, then we would have established institutional framework and structures that would make it easy for every diplomatic mission of Gambia to issue these documents to every Gambian. I think it is what the Constitution says. And if I may read the relevant section of the Constitution, that says all Gambians are entitled to access to public service. That is what the Constitution states. So what the Gambia government is doing is in pursuance of the Constitution, that is granting citizens the right to access public services. Public services, that is what it says so. Just spare me with a second. Let me go to the relevant section. I didn't know that this matter will come up, but I just arm myself with the Constitution.
Yeah, well, it's one of those. It's one of those things that we had protests about, over the weekend, and if at conception, the leader of the UDP, who was foreign minister at the time, did not disapprove of the idea, I suppose you would say, well, UDP has, at least the youth wing, has no reason to be protesting against the issuance of the ID card to Gambians abroad.
Yes, but when he was Minister of Foreign Affairs, I discussed the matter with him and he supported it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He supported it. I can say authoritatively that I discussed the matter with him as minister to minister, with my technicians in his office. I informed him of our intention to do this, what is being done today, and he supported it.
Okay.
His only condition at the time was, who will be in charge of those immigration officers? Are they going to report directly to me, or are they going to be part of the diplomatic service? And we agreed that they will be part of the diplomatic service, but then the reporting ministry will be the Ministry of Interior, because they are our agents. Just like the visa issuing officer of the United States in the Gambia here does not report to the State Department, but reports to the Home Office. They are all public servants, each of them performing their roles for their citizens outside and consular services, but they report to their various ministries. So immigration officers posted outside will report to me as Interior Minister, but there's going to be coordination between the two ministries because we are one government. So he had supported it then. And so, yes, public service of the Gambia.
What about the issue of, election deposits and, the revision of the price upwards? Now it's 1 million if you want to be a president, and they're saying that's discriminatory.
What is discriminatory about that?
Well, it's not everybody who can afford $1 million.
Well, it is true. It's not everybody who can afford one, but it's not everybody who can afford $10,000 either.
True.
That will also be discriminatory. There is someone in my village who wants to become a councillor or a member of parliament. He is a farmer, but he has the qualifications. He's probably not gainfully employed and has no one to give him $10,000. I mean, for him, 10,000 equals 1 million. Is that fair also to him? You see, in a civilized society, in a democracy, you cannot satisfy everybody.
True.
But there has to be standards. When you want to contest for the highest office, there has to be standards. This is not just any office like I indicated. So, no matter what, even if you say $50,000, people will say is unfair. You say $10,000, there will be people who will still say it's too much. There are those who want it to be free. And there has to be a cap. I mean, honestly speaking, we have to have a standard. So I do not think it's discriminatory. What is discriminatory about it? Some people cannot afford it. What about those who can afford it? I mean, they say we can afford it. Is it discriminatory for them? I mean, those who cannot afford it cannot say it's discriminatory. Because not everybody can be certain. Every piece of legislation will favor someone and not favor others. But the state should strike a balance. I think, $1 million is not bad. And those who are complaining about it, they have a right to complain. But Peter, if you really believe that it is discriminatory, the Constitution gives you the right to go to court and challenge it. Don't just go to a political platform and say is wrong is wrong. If you are sincere and you are genuine and you mean what you say, use the courts, go to the law courts and prove that it is discriminatory. When they say so, then it can be discriminatory. And, government will be obliged to change it. But so far, just screaming at the end of Abundung Bantaba at a political platform or on Facebook or social media is wrong, and you refuse to do what is necessary to correct it, I think that is disingenuous, it is dishonest. It is deceiving the public. It is cheap politics. We should all move away from that.